The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to Pain Free Today with your host, Denis Thompson. Brought to you by Worldwide Advanced Medical Technologies, LLC. Call 954-256-0045 or online at painmanagementnetwork.com. Here you will learn how to eliminate your pain. You will learn about a revolutionary new therapy called the ARP Wave System, which treats the neurological origin of pain, not the symptoms. You will learn how to increase your range of motion and how you can move freely without pain at any age. You will learn how you can try one free treatment from one of our local providers. Denis Thompson has 25 years' experience working with top athletes and non-athletes of all types. He has treated thousands of patients with better than a 95% success rate. His list of athlete clients reads like a who's who of the sports world. Listen and find out how the ARP Wave System can benefit you. And now, here's your host, Denis Thompson.
Good morning and welcome to Pain Free Today. I am your host, Denis Thompson, and we will be having a very exciting show today. We just got back from Las Vegas at the Pain Week convention, where we interacted with many doctors, many different patients who have been listening to the show. So it was quite an interesting and exciting time in Las Vegas last week. The first thing that I think would be important to do this morning is for those new listeners, and I know we have quite a few today, is to explain just exactly what is neurotherapy. What is the ARP Wave System neurotherapy? And to begin with that, let's just start with the basics. What it isn't physical therapy. What it is a therapeutic program that is designed and based around one simple fact, and that is everything in your body is controlled by your nervous system. And anytime you have pain, restricted range of motion, or any type of symptoms, typically what it should tell us is that is where the problem ended, not at all where the problem is coming from. So what the ARP Wave System neurotherapy does is it identifies where the signal is coming from that is causing the problem, whether it be pain in your knee or your elbow or a headache. All of those are where the problem ended. If we have an X-ray, an MRI, a CAT scan, a scat of any kind, any type of imaging, ultrasound, typically all of those tests tell us where the problem ended, not at all where it's coming from. So the ARP Wave System neurotherapy is a very unique therapeutic system. It incorporates proprietary technology, proprietary techniques, and a very unique system, which is basically a three-part system. Step one, or part one of the system, is identifying, is your nervous system doing what it's supposed to do? And it's a very simple test. And for those of you who were in Las Vegas, saw us do that repetitively. I think we did it probably 60, 70 patients we treated while we were there. And it always started with the very simple test that we call an imbalance test. And what we're looking for is, do the muscles turn on fast enough to absorb force? Because if they don't, we know there's a neurological miscommunication. The muscle's job is to absorb force, and if it cannot do that, then we know immediately there's a breakdown in communication somewhere. So the very first thing that we do in part one of the ARP Wave System neurotherapy is we test each patient to determine, is the nervous system sending the right signal to the right muscle to turn it on fast enough to allow that muscle to absorb force. If it is not, then we have to, in that step one or part one, we have to basically restart that neurological engine. And we do that utilizing our proprietary technology. And what we're doing with that technology is we're telling your muscles that they're working correctly, even though they are not. And after a period of 3 minutes, we basically told your muscles over 120,000 times that they are in fact working correctly. And so when we test again, we typically find that the muscles are responding to that signal and will respond to the ability to absorb force. So unless a muscle is absorbing force, you're going to have a problem. So let's think about that a second. If you have pain in your wrist, if you've been diagnosed with carpal tunnel, if you have pain in your knee, you've been diagnosed with patella tendonitis, bone on bone, if you have pain in your elbow, you've been diagnosed with medial or lateral epicondylitis, you have pain in your shoulder, been diagnosed with adhesive capsulitis or a shoulder problem, or a rotator cuff problem. Keep in mind, those are all statements of where the problem ended. They are not indications of where the problem is coming from. And where the problem is coming from, quite frankly, is the muscles just aren't doing what they're supposed to do to absorb force, so that force transfers into the tissue. Could be your elbow, could be your wrist, could be your knee, could be your foot, could be your neck. Those tissues are not designed to absorb force. So consequently, you're going to have a problem. So what we do is we find out, A, is the nervous system doing what it's supposed to do and keeping the force out of areas that it's not supposed to be going into? If it isn't doing what it's supposed to do in step one or part one, we have to get the nervous system to do what it's supposed to do. And we do that by basically resetting the nervous system by using our proprietary technology and techniques to do that. The patient feels nothing, and immediately when we test again, they see a noticeable change in the ability to absorb force. The second step is, once we've identified if the nervous system is working correctly or not, now we have to use a diagnostic mechanism to find out exactly where the signal is coming from that is causing the pain. Because patients, keep in mind, if you're out there and you have pain anywhere in your body, that is where the problem ended up. It is not where the problem is coming from. I know that's very, very difficult to understand, and when we are in Vegas in testing these patients and working with these different doctors, keep in mind these are the finest minds in the world when it comes to addressing pain. They were quite amazed to find out that where they are feeling the pain is not at all where the pain signal is coming from causing that feeling. And so once we identify where that signal is coming from, then and only then can we address the problem. And there is really no other diagnostic mechanism that's available to any provider that's going to tell you where that signal is coming from. And we had many conversations with different providers, of course, since there were thousands of doctors there, pertaining to this very same subject. And when it came all down to the bottom line, there is no other test that's going to show you where that signal is coming from. That's why it's proprietary. That's why our techniques are proprietary. And what we're doing is teaching doctors all over the world these techniques. So if you're listening and you're in pain, you've been told you need surgery, you have any type of injury, what we'd like to do is offer you the opportunity to see the ARP Wave System neurotherapy in action and see if it can help you. We know it can help you because we've helped over 75,000 patients. The trouble is, you don't know it can help you. So we make a simple offer, and that is that we will basically treat you, evaluate you, at absolutely no cost, no obligation to you, the doctor, or your insurance company, just to prove to you that the ARP Wave System neurotherapy can help you, because it sounds way too good to be true. And if you're a provider, we have patients that are very anxious into having a free no obligation session. And if you're a patient, what we strongly recommend you do is contact your doctor. Ask your doctor if you could have and set up this demonstration or this complimentary session in your doctor's office. It costs the doctor nothing, costs you nothing. And what we're going to basically be able to do is show both of you, the doctor and yourself, that neurotherapy can help you. And if it can, then the doctor can be looking at adding this as a new service, provided you agree that it would help you. So we reach out to your doctor, give them a call, tell them you'd like to be treated with the ARP Wave System neurotherapy. Tell them that you can set it up to where it can be done in their office at no cost and no obligation. And if the doctor says no, just give us a call locally at 954-256-0045. We have providers all over the country, especially in South Florida, that would be more than happy to allow you the opportunity to try the ARP Wave System neurotherapy at absolutely no cost and no obligation. With the understanding is that if it does what we say it does, you basically go into the therapeutic program. So that number again is 954-256-0045, or you can contact us on the web at painmanagementnetwork.com. So that's a way that everyone can have the opportunity to try the ARP Wave System neurotherapy at no cost and no obligation. Because, quite frankly, what you're going to hear the rest of the day and what you've heard all these many, many weeks that we've been on the show really, really does sound too good to be true. And why doesn't every doctor in the country have this? And the answer to that is because we just now started offering it to doctors. So if you're a provider and would like to try this on your own, please give us a call. And we'd be more than happy to set up a demonstration in your office, treat a couple of your patients. If you're in our area, if we have a representative in that area. And if we don't, then we can basically send you everything you need to do and do it all over the Internet on Skype as we do all over the entire world. So no matter where you're listening, whether you're a provider or whether you're a potential patient, wherever you're at, we have the opportunity to set up a no-cost, no-obligation evaluation of our system. Because when you see it, is the only way you're going to believe it. Because it works on a completely different premise. And that premise is everything is controlled by your nervous system. And everyone traditionally treats where the problem ended, not where the problem is coming from. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the different cases that we ran into in Las Vegas.
Individuals who have been unsuccessful in eliminating their pain are invited to obtain a free ARP Wave System treatment. Register now on our website at painmanagementnetwork.com to arrange a free ARP Wave System treatment from one of the doctors in our ARP Wave South Florida provider network. You can also call 954-256-0045 in order to schedule your free evaluation and first treatment. Contact us now at 954-256-0045 or visit our website www.painmanagementnetwork.com and register to begin a new life pain-free. The ARP Wave Provider Network is also currently looking for doctors to join our network. We have an increasing number of patients who are looking for doctors to perform treatments using the ARP Wave System to help them eliminate pain they are experiencing. Contact us now at 954-256-0045 to have a representative come out and see you, or visit our website, www.painmanagementnetwork.com, and register for an appointment with one of our representatives. Once you are in our network, we can start referring you patients located in your area looking for doctors performing ARP Wave System treatments.
Welcome back to Pain Free Today. I'm your host, Denis Thompson. And in the first segment of the show, we were talking about the ARP Wave System neurotherapy, what it was, and we got up to basically step number 2, where we identify exactly where the neurological origin of the physiological symptoms are coming from. And also in that step is when we begin to do the treatment. Once we find out exactly where the problem is, we can get rid of it. Not until. Not where the problem ended up, but where it's coming from. And we do that through therapeutic exercise. We do that through a very, very unique use of proprietary technology, which allows us to neurologically re-educate the patient's muscles to be able to absorb force, transfer force out of the area that bothers them into an area that it should have been going to all along, and then basically re-educate the patient on how to move efficiently, therefore breaking down that cycle of pain. So when we were in Vegas this last weekend, we saw a tremendous number of doctors with a tremendous number of unique situations. One of them was a doctor out of Nebraska who for well in excess of 5 years now has had serious complications. He was involved in a concussive type of accident where a trunk lid came crashing down on his head, and after that he had serious problems. He could not turn his head to the left, could not turn his head to the right, but probably 10 degrees. Had major headaches, would immediately get dizzy, would get nauseated. Very difficult to practice medicine when you are in that condition. He would sit for a period of time, and it would bring his pain level up in excess of 6 or 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 all the time. So he was a very interesting case, and what we did is we basically took him through the system. And there's probably about 20 doctors watching as we were doing this. The very first thing we did is we tested to see if he could absorb force, which he could not. And since he could not absorb force, we had to immediately change that ability by resetting his nervous system, which we did with our proprietary technology. Once we reset his nervous system, the next thing we had to do is relax the muscles that were protecting him. Keep in mind that when you experience trauma, your muscles immediately react to a signal from your nervous system to go into what we call concentric contraction, which is they ball up, they splint a joint, they kind of like clench your fist. That would be kind of like a muscle protecting you if you clenched your fist. So he was in a very rigid state, could not move his head either way, sideways, forward, backwards, made no difference. He absolutely had no ability to move his neck. Once we basically put him back in balance, reestablished the neurological connection to his muscles, once we then diagnosed with our doctor where the actual signal was coming from causing these symptoms, we began to work on those, on that origin. And as we did that, 3 things immediately happened. Number 1, he stopped being dizzy. He was dizzy when he walked in, very dizzy, nauseated. He instantaneously stopped being dizzy. His muscles in his shoulders, which were pulling his left shoulder way up and his right shoulder down, immediately relaxed, and he went into what we call a neutral state, which means that his shoulders were equal. At that point in time, we had to break the fear factor of moving, because if it hurts to move, you are not going to move. And if you know it's going to hurt, you're definitely not going to move. So the first thing that we had to do in the therapeutic side in step 2 is we had to demonstrate to the doctor that it was not going to hurt to move the head forward, backwards, sideways, et cetera, et cetera. Now, keep in mind that up until the moment that he saw us, he could not move his head 10 degrees without excruciating pain and without going into almost a hyper-dizzy scenario. So we very slowly began to move the head to the left, and we increased his range of motion almost 100%. His chin was almost on his shoulder. We then went to the right, and the same thing happened. Then I asked him if he was dizzy, and he said, "No, I am not dizzy at all, and I can't believe what I just saw." And I said, "Okay, so now let's tilt the head backwards." "Oh, no, I can't do that." I said, "No, you got to do that because I got to take your cognitive brain out of the equation. Keep in mind, your cognitive brain is designed to protect you, and unless you break that cycle, you will never break that cycle. Just that simple." So he was very reluctant, but he began to tilt his head backwards. And as he began to tilt his head backwards, you could see a light bulb come on in his eyes, and he just felt, okay, I can do this, and it's not going to kill me. The pain's not going to be excruciating. As a matter of fact, there was no pain at all, none. But he thought, based on past experience, there would be an extreme amount of pain. So what we did in that first session is we showed him and every doctor that was watching that he was able to do these tasks without pain. And unless you show a patient that they can do something that heretofore would bother them, they're not going to do it. It's just that simple. So you cannot break a pattern unless you demonstrate the ability to do what a person believes they can't do without pain. And the use of the ARP technology, very, very proprietary techniques, allows this to happen. So in the process, step 1, we had to get the nervous system working correctly. Step 2, we had to find out where the signal was coming from that was causing the issue. And step 3, we have to basically build up the body's ability to absorb force. So in his case, he was at step 2, where we were beginning to do the treatment. Now, this was at probably 9 o'clock in the morning on the very first day that we were there. He asked us, quite frankly, can I come back? How fast can I come back? Because I haven't felt like this for 5 years. Well, we were having a hospitality suite that night, and we invited him into that. Prior to the hospitality suite, he came in later on that afternoon for a second session. He came in, he was moving his head freely. He had absolutely no dizziness, no pain, first time in 5 years. Now, every doctor that watched that could not believe what they actually saw, even though they saw it. I think they probably thought that this doctor was probably on my payroll, which he was not, obviously. So to make a long story short, even when you see it, it's very, very difficult to put your arms around, because keep in mind, this is one of the leading minds in the entire United States as a pain specialist. And for 5 years, he was in extraordinary pain that he could only medicate. He had absolutely no other tool at his disposal to break that up. He tried laser, he tried chiropractic, he tried physical therapy, he tried occupational therapy, he tried heat, he tried cold, he tried everything underneath the sun, all naturopathic ingredients. Keep in mind, every single one of the things that you normally would use for a condition like this addresses the condition where the condition ended, not where the condition came from. The condition didn't come from him getting hit on the head. That was the impetus that caused a neurological breakdown. All the symptoms evidenced after that injury were physiological symptoms. And anytime you primarily address a physiological symptom, you're going to be addressing it for a long, long time, because it is not the problem. It is where the problem ended. It is not the problem. So what we did with this individual is, in a period of 2.5 days, he went from having a continuum of pain in excess of 6 and 7 every single day of the week for 5 years to having and massive dizziness, massive bouts of vertigo, massive bouts of indigestion, upset stomach, you name it, this poor individual had it. And yet he was still practicing medicine, which was to his benefit, because, I mean, he had that great of love for his patients that he went through all these difficulties just to be able to treat his patients. In 2.5 days, this individual went from those symptoms to almost none. Almost full range of motion, to the left, to the right, forward and backward. Almost elimination of all dizziness. Dizziness went down to a very, very small amount. And a completely different outlook on life. So, in just 2.5 days of working on where the problem was coming from, not where the problem was ending up, we were able to facilitate that big of a change. But again, I know it sounds way too good to be true. And if it was true, then why in the world wouldn't every doctor in the entire world do that? And that's a darn good question. But the answer, I think, is that we just started working with doctors. Prior to that, we were the provider, and now we're setting up doctors all over the world to be our providers. So what I'd like you to do, if you are living in pain, if you've been told you need surgery, if you've had a surgery that didn't do what you wanted it to do, if you've been injured and you've been told it's going to take weeks or months to recover from the injury, we can help you. But there's only one way you're ever going to know if that's possible or not, and that's to give us a call. So call 954-256-0045 and ask us if your doctor is one of our providers. If he or she is not, please call your doctor. Offer them this opportunity at no cost and no obligation to see the ARP Wave System neurotherapy in their office, treating you, again, at no cost, no obligation. We'll be right back.
Individuals who have been unsuccessful in eliminating their pain are invited to obtain a free ARP Wave System treatment. Register now on our website at painmanagementnetwork.com to arrange a free ARP Wave System treatment from one of the doctors in our ARP Wave South Florida Provider Network. You can also call 954-256-0045 in order to schedule your free evaluation and first treatment. Contact us now at 954-256-0045 or visit our website www.painmanagementnetwork.com and register to begin a new life pain-free. The ARP Wave Provider Network is also currently looking for doctors to join our network. We have an increasing number of patients who are looking for doctors to perform treatments using the ARP Wave System to help them eliminate pain they are experiencing. Contact us now at 954-256-0045 to have a representative come out and see you, or visit our website, www.painmanagementnetwork.com, and register for an appointment with one of our representatives. Once you are in our network, we can start referring you patients located in your area looking for doctors performing ARP Wave System treatments.
Welcome back to Pain Free Today. I'm your host, Denis Thompson. In the last segment, we were talking about a doctor that we met in Las Vegas, and in this section, I think we'll talk about a couple other doctors that we met. We had the opportunity of treating well in excess of 60 some odd doctors and their families, as well as individual patients that have heard us on the show here. And we had another very interesting case, quite probably familiar with some of the symptoms that you may have, because if you've been told that you need a new hip, you need a hip replacement, you have hip pain, which is a very, very common form of pain right now, and it's radiating into sciatica, and it's you've also been diagnosed with things such as spinal stenosis or sciatica or needing a new hip. Listen carefully, because we ran into a number of cases like that. One was very, very intriguing, because this doctor was telling me that his hip has been bothering him for well in excess of 10 years. He's tried, again, everything, and keep in mind, this is one of the leading minds in this country dealing with pain, and he's tried everything. The only thing that has ever helped him is to medicate, and he was on very, very large doses of very, very serious medication, and that's the only way that he could deal with the pain. And based upon that, I thought it was very, very intriguing to find out just exactly what happened. So we started doing a complete workup. We had a number of doctors watching us. And as I explained to the doc, I said, look, I don't know if I can help you or not, but I think I can, but there's only one way you're ever going to know, and that's to try it. So jump up on this table and let's start the process. And he said, all right. And he told me, he said, look, if you can get rid of this pain, and you can show me how to get rid of this pain, then I'll become one of your providers. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I said, well, get ready to become one of our providers, because, we see this about 50 to 60 times a month in our facilities. So first thing we did is we had to check to see, is the nervous system working correctly? And it wasn't. It's just that simple. When we tested him, he failed miserably every test that we gave him. And these tests are not designed to identify where the problem ended up. They're designed to identify, is the nervous system working correctly? And what I mean by that is this. Think of it this way. If someone were to shut off the main power in your house, you are not going to be successful at turning on light bulbs. Well, your body's the same way, and the main power in your body is your nervous system. And if your nervous system is not doing what it's supposed to do, then under no conditions is your body going to be able to absorb force. And if your body cannot absorb force, it's like a car without shock absorbers. That force is going to go directly to the frame of your body, tendons, ligaments, joints, fascia. All of those tissues are not designed to absorb that force, and that's exactly where that force is going to end up. So in this doctor's case, what was happening is his lower body, his legs, weren't able to absorb the force, so the force was transferring directly into his hip, and obviously it's not designed to go there. So the first thing we had to do is turn on that nervous system. We did that. It took about 3 minutes, and as I was doing that, I was explaining that what we were doing, using our proprietary technology and techniques, is we were telling his muscles something his brain couldn't tell his muscles. We were telling his muscles at basically 40 times a second, 38 times faster than his brain could tell him, that they're working correctly, even though they were not. So at the end of 3 minutes, we had already told those muscles with our proprietary technology well in excess of 120,000 times that the muscles were working correctly. And when I then tested him lo and behold, they did what they were supposed to do. They began to absorb force. So then we had to go to step 2. And as I was going to step 2, we had a number of doctors ask me what I was doing, and I said, typically what I'm doing is I'm looking for sodium-potassium leakage. So for all the providers listening, they know what that means. For you patients, what I'm looking for is an electrical short. Think of it like an electrician looking for an electrical short. Think of yourself as a television set. If you have a TV and there is a short in it, I assure you the TV will not work. And I also assure you that it doesn't make any difference where the short is, the TV still does not work. So with that in mind, think of it this way. If you're a provider, we're looking for sodium-potassium leakage. If you're a patient or a potential patient, what we're looking for is an electrical short. We're looking for some place where there's a breakdown in communication. Now, there is no test available in science today that will tell you where a signal is coming from. There's only a test that will tell you where the signal breaks down and where the tissue broke down and where the end point of the problem is. MRIs tell you where it ended. X-rays tell you where it ended. Ultrasound tells you where it ended. Nothing tells you where it's coming from except our proprietary technology and techniques. So, with that in mind, we found out exactly where the problem was coming from. And it was nowhere near his hip. It was way down in his legs. So as I explained to him, and I'll explain to you, if you were a house built on stilts and someone cut out the stilts from underneath your house, what happens to the house? Well, the answer is the house collapses. Well, that's exactly what was going on with this doctor. So once we identified exactly where the signal was coming from, we then had to break the neurological compensation pattern, in other words, his movement pattern. So we had him stand up and sit down, and the first thing he did is probably the same thing every one of you would do. To sit and stand, he had to lean forward, push himself off of the chair to get up. Why? And what muscles didn't he use? Well, he didn't use his legs. Those are the stilts that holds the house up. And the reason he didn't use his legs because his brain knew they didn't work. And what I mean by didn't work, couldn't absorb force. So the force transferred out of the legs into the hip, and now we have a hip problem. And now we're bone on bone. And now we're told we need surgery. When in reality, what we need to do is transfer the force out of that area. And if it's damaged severely enough, then you do need surgery. If it's not damaged that severely enough, then you don't need surgery. It's just that simple. And if you do need surgery, the ARP Wave System can speed up your recovery by about 80%. If you don't need surgery, well, that's a good thing. But the bottom line is you've got to get the force out of that tissue, otherwise you're going to be in pain. Now, if you don't think that works, and you have hip pain, or you have back pain, or you have knee pain, what I want you to do is sit in a chair perfectly straight in the chair and tell me, do you have pain in your knee? Do you have pain in your hip? Do you have pain in your back? More than likely, it went down considerably. Then if I have you stand up where your knees don't go forward, your upper torso doesn't go forward, and you transfer the force out of the tissue that's bothering you into tissue that doesn't bother you, guess what happens to your pain? It goes away immediately. The trouble is you're not able to do that. So as I was explaining to the doctor, that is exactly what's going on. The force is going into this area. His brain is basically sending a signal to the wrong muscles to do the wrong job, and consequently we're going to have pain. Right now, when I have him stand up and sit down with my assistants, let's ask him, does he have pain? Well, guess what? He did not have pain. Now, I wasn't lifting him. I was allowing him stability. I had his arms straight out in front of him. The rules of the game were his torso couldn't come forward, couldn't lean forward. He had to keep his arms fully extended. He had to push his feet as hard as he could into the ground. And under no conditions could his knees go forward of his ankles when he stood up. And the second he did that, he had absolutely zero pain. Zero pain. Understand this. As skilled as our surgeons and as skilled as our doctors are, they are not trained in the neurological component of force absorption. They only know what they know. And they're extraordinarily gifted at what they do. So if you're a provider, you now have a new way of addressing a serious, serious problem called pain. And that new way of addressing it is finding out exactly where it's coming from, not where it ends up. Getting rid of the origin, not masking the symptom. So this is something that every provider in this country should be able to add to their practice as an additional service to their clientele. I'm not saying to a provider, to your doctor, to your surgeon, stop doing what you're doing. Not at all. I'm saying just simply look at adding this as an addition, not a subtraction of what you're presently doing. But again, everything I'm saying sounds way, way, way too good to be true. Unfortunately, it is. But there's only one way you're ever going to know, whether you're a provider or whether you're a patient, if what I'm saying is true, and that's to see it in action and to try it. And if it costs you nothing, and there's no obligation whatsoever, and there's no investment on anybody's part, then why in the world wouldn't you do it? So if you're a patient, do me a favor. Call your doctor. Ask them if they would agree to have you treated in their office with the ARP Wave System neurotherapy. If they say yes, great. If they say no, give us a call at 954-256-0045, and we definitely have doctors that will give you that opportunity. No cost, no obligation. If you're a provider and you're offering services of any kind, please look at this as an additional service that you can offer, an additional therapy that you can offer. Key word is additional, not a subtraction of what you're presently doing. This doesn't take away from anything you're doing. It just expedites everything you're doing. It's just a new way of addressing an old problem, but addressing it neurologically, not physiologically. So if you're a doctor, provider in the area, please give us a call at 954-256-0045. We'll set up a time to have one of our representatives come out, treat a couple of your patients, and demonstrate to you, no cost, no obligation, that the ARP Wave System neurotherapy will fit perfectly into your practice, and every single patient you have can benefit from it. If you'd like to contact us via the web, contact us at painmanagementnetwork.com. When we're back, we'll talk about another case that we met in Vegas.
Individuals who have been unsuccessful in eliminating their pain are invited to obtain a free ARP Wave System treatment. Register now on our website at painmanagementnetwork.com to arrange a free ARP Wave System treatment from one of the doctors in our ARP Wave South Florida Provider Network. You can also call 954-256-0045 in order to schedule your free evaluation and first treatment. Contact us now at 954-256-0045 or visit our website www.painmanagementnetwork.com and register to begin a new life pain-free. The ARP Wave Provider Network is also currently looking for doctors to join our network. We have an increasing number of patients who are looking for doctors to perform treatments using the ARP Wave System to help them eliminate pain they are experiencing. Contact us now at 954-256-0045 to have a representative come out and see you, or visit our website, www.painmanagementnetwork.com, and register for an appointment with one of our representatives. Once you are in our network, we can start referring you patients located in your area looking for doctors performing ARP Wave System treatments.
We are back. My name is Dennis Thompson. I'm your host. You're listening to Pain Free Today. And this last segment, we'll talk about a very unique case of a doctor that we met in Vegas at the Pain Week conference, where there were physicians from all over the United States, all over the world for that matter, that came in to address the number one problem in this country in medicine, and that is pain. This doctor came in and was in a very, very bad sort of way. Had neck fusion, had 2 shoulder surgeries, 2 hip surgeries, a knee surgery, and was facing another one, and had neck fusion surgery, and was facing back fusion surgery. And when he came in because he was watching the treatment of the doctor that we talked about in the last segment with the hip, and he said, look, if you can do that with his hip, what can you do with my neck? I said, well, tell me what's going on. And so we did a complete workup and found out all the things that happened to him and how it happened, and looked at all of the things that he had done, all of the surgical interventions that he'd gone through, how much pain he was in, what it did to his quality of life, how it affected his practice, how it affected his day-to-day activity with his family. And, it was a heart-wrenching story. I mean, here's a person that could hardly move his head, couldn't raise his arms beyond probably 45 to 60 degrees, just had no quality of life, none. And so when we run into a situation like this, we have to identify which area do we want to focus on first, because the ARP Wave System neurotherapy focuses on one specific, I guess you would say, symptom at a time. And the reason for that is because you don't want to miscommunicate more than what's already going on. So the very first thing that we did is, just like we do with everybody, we had to put him through the 3-part system. The first thing we did is we tested to determine, was the nervous system sending the appropriate signals to the muscles to allow them to absorb force? And of course, he failed absolutely every single test we gave him. Not only did he fail the lower body test, he failed the upper body test also. So it became very, very clear that he had absolutely zero ability to absorb force. Now, if you want to know what that really means, think of it in terms of your automobile. If you were to go outside right now, take all the shocks off your car, no matter what kind of car you drive, and you drive around your city for a while, it's going to be a rough ride, but you're not going to do a significant amount of damage. But if you decide to drive that automobile, no matter where you're at in this country, to Alaska and back, I can assure you, you are not going to have a car left. And the reason you're not going to have a car is because all the force that's supposed to be going into your shock absorbers is now going to be going into the frame of your car, and the frame of your car is not designed to absorb that force. So if just driving back and forth to Alaska is going to do that to a car, can you imagine what would happen if all of a sudden you took all the shocks off your body and you had 800 to 900 pounds of force going into areas in your body that it wasn't designed to go to? So let's say your foot, your knee, your hip, your shoulder, your back, your knee was taking all of that force. Do you think you might be in a lot of pain? Do you think you might want to not move around? Do you think you might need surgery in a very short period of time? And the answer, of course, is yes. The trouble is we don't look at it as force absorption problem. And we don't look at force absorption as a neurological phenomenon. We look at it as, oh, well, I'm strong. I can do that. I can do that. No, you're not. Strength has absolutely nothing to do with the ability to absorb force. I work with the most elite athletes in the world. I can categorically tell you some of the strongest men in the world are injury prone because they cannot absorb force. You could be very weak and absorb force and not get hurt, and you can be incredibly strong and not be able to absorb force and get hurt all the time. So if you've got children in athletics, I can assure you that if they're not able to absorb force, they are going to get hurt. It has nothing to do with the sport of choice. It has to do with the body's ability to do what it is supposed to do. And that is a neurological function, not a physiological function. And as long as we keep looking at it physiologically, we're going to continue to have the same program and same end result time and time and time again. So with this doctor, we had to put him back in balance. We had to put him back in lower body balance, upper body balance, and we had to put his biceps tendon back into its groove. Now, what that means is that he had zero ability to absorb force. So I asked him, what area bothers you the most? Is it your neck? Is it your shoulder? Is it your knee? Is it your back? And we kind of went through the whole process, and it ended up being, well, his neck is the one thing that bothered him more than anything. And it created a tremendous amount of pain once he would try to move his head more than 10 to 15 degrees. Very, very similar to the first person we talked about today, except he had a myriad of other problems other than what the original individual that we talked about today had. So our goal then was, and we have a very, very large group of doctors now watching this because this is a case that everybody believes is absolutely 100% irreversible because they believe that the fusion is preventing the range of motion. So I asked each doctor a very simplistic question. So if you're a patient and you've had fusion, back fusion or neck fusion, and you've been told that you're not going to get your range of motion back, you're not going to get your range of motion back if you don't try. And I'm going to ask you, just like I asked the doctors, a very simple question. Did the surgeon fuse your muscles? And of course the answer is no. And since the muscle controls the joint, not vice versa, does it not make sense that if you allow the muscle to move, it will move your neck, knee, shoulder, foot, whatever has been told to you that is frozen? There is no such thing as a frozen joint. Absolutely not. There's a frozen joint, meaning that the joint is frozen, but it doesn't prevent you from moving. So with that in mind, we began the process, and we began to treat this individual. And as we began to do that, we asked what level of pain he was in, and he was in a pain level of 8 or 9 when we started. So I had him move to a baseline. I had him move his head to the left, to the right, forward and backward, and he probably demonstrated no more than 10 to 20 degrees range of motion, which means he could hardly move his head. And I asked him what level of pain it was, and he said, when I get to the end range, it was, quite substantial, 8 or 9. I said, okay, fine. So we utilized our proprietary technology and our proprietary techniques. We began the process, and we said, we're now going to help you move. And as I helped him move his head, his chin went approximately 35 degrees further than it did earlier. And at the end of that 35 degrees, he was still at a pain of 8 or 9. But at 20 degrees, he had 0 pain. At 30 degrees, he had 0 pain. At 35 degrees, he had pain of roughly 8 or 9. So we moved his range of motion dramatically, increased his range of motion dramatically, and explained to him that now the pain that he used to have in a restricted range of motion, he had at that end range of motion. And as he went through the therapeutic cycle, that would go away and his range of motion would dramatically improve. And as we went through the process, which took us roughly about 20 minutes, his range of motion dramatically enhanced. He could move his head to the left, move his head to the right, almost full range of motion. And where he used to have pain, he had absolutely no pain. 25 to 30% greater range of motion, he had no pain. When we got to the max end of his range of motion, he had the same pain. So ironically, everybody watching him said, wow. And I asked him, what do you think? And he said, well, I still have the pain. So he only knew that he still had the pain, but he wasn't taking into consideration it was 35 to 40 degrees further away than what it was originally, until I brought his attention to that fact. And then and only then did he see a change. And each and every single one of you are the same way. We only know what we know. We don't know what's presently, and we don't know what the future is. We only know what we know. So at the end of this cycle, 20 minutes into this cycle, he had greater range of motion with zero pain where he used to have pain. But there's only one way you are ever going to know if what I just said actually happened. Try it yourself. And if it costs you nothing, there's no obligation whatsoever. Keep in mind, we treated 75,000 patients with better than a 95% success rate. I know we can help you. Give us that opportunity. If it costs you nothing, why not do it? So until next week, this is your host, Denis Thompson, and have a pain-free day.
You've been listening to Pain Free Today with your host, Denis Thompson. Denis is the creator of the ARP Wave System. Send in your questions for next week's show to questions@painmanagementnetwork.com. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.